super educated. I'm smarter than Spock.
Star Trek the original series debuted on September 8, 1966 and aired for 3 seasons on NBC. It's a sci-fi epic about a crew of explorers going out to see the stars on their ship, the Enterprise. It was cancelled, but in reruns it found new life, and now it's widely regarded as a very forward-thinking story about how humanity can overcome its differences and live in total equality. It's created by self-described humanist Gene Roddenberry. Despite being very forward on issues like race with the first interracial kiss on television, and on gender too, there's not a lot of explicitly gay content. Why? In an interview with Salon in 2010, George Takei, one of the lead actors on the show, said, "And I asked Gene, how do you feel about gay rights? He said, this is an important issue and we want to deal with it. However, this was while we were on TV. He said, our ratings are low and I need to keep the show on the air. All I need is another firestorm and this show will be cancelled, and I won't be able to make those statements that I've been making with the show." In an interview with The Humanist, Roddenberry himself said, "My attitude towards homosexuality has changed. I came to the conclusion that I was wrong. I would sometimes say something anti-homosexual off the top of my head because it was thought in those days to be funny. I never really deeply believed those comments, but I gave the impression of being thoughtless in these areas." So, end of story. Despite what Roddenberry wanted, Star Trek isn't gay. I'm kidding, of course. My argument is that limitations placed upon the show by the censors led to the first fanfiction, and that this represented a post-textual victory for queer people. While not all historians believe that Star Trek was the first story to generate fanfiction, it was one of the first to generate fanfiction as we know it today on a national scale. People watched the show and decided that the content put out by the original creator told a good but incomplete story. For those fans, Star Trek is not simply something that can be reread. It is something that can and must be rewritten to make it more responsive to their needs, to make it a better producer of personal meanings and pleasures. And right they did. About Vulcan culture, about the details of space combat, and most importantly, they wrote about sex. Though we often remember the counterculture of the time, the 60s were actually a time of great homophobia and sexual repression. Fanfiction may have acted as a vector for escapism for some people. Some contemporary scholars thought that maybe Spock's alien attitude acted as a location for the newly liberated female sexuality of the time. Spock was by no means a stereotypically masculine character for the time, and he invited projection even for women. The central presence of two male characters that are constantly there for each other, combined with William Shatner's strange sex appeal, made Star Trek fertile ground for some of the first known gay fan fiction. It wasn't easy, but some Trekkies in different areas got together and, to paraphrase Falzone, formed small, closed, closeted societies of writers. Many of the first people to imagine Kirk and Spock together were actually women. Debate rages about what motivated these women to do this, but they secretly held meetings in private homes and published some of the first zines in an effort to share writing that before had been hidden. The internet age would make it much easier for fanfiction authors to post their works with a degree of anonymity and a decreased legal risk, but even back in the 60s, some of the most basic tenets of fanfiction culture, such as slash fiction depicting gay men, were beginning to develop. This action represented a radical act because at the time it was very illegal in the US to send pornography by mail, let alone publish it for all to see. Without knowing it, these women were guiding the birth of the fanfiction community while defying cultural norms around homosexuality. It would take a whole lot of psychologists theorizing about Freudian connections to the character, per Karen, before society would realize that fanfiction authors and gay people aren't suffering from mental illness. They were as natural as characters working together on a Star Trek episode. So maybe there were gay people in the original series. It just took some textual poaching to find it. There's a lot of explicitly gay content,